Okay, so good morning. Today's daf is daf Pei Vav in Bava Metzia. But before we begin, we had a question yesterday that I want to discuss further, and that was we had seen when we were discussing the greatness of Rebbe Chia, we talked about how Rebbe Chia would prevent the forgetting of the Torah, as opposed to Rebbe Chanina, whose teaching could allow for the replacement of the Torah that was forgotten. So Ken noted that this was similar to another dispute, and he was referring to the Gemara in Maseches Brachot, Samech Dalid, where a new head of the yeshiva needed to be selected from Rabbah or Rav Yosef. And the Gemara says Rav Yosef was Har Sinai, and Rabbah was Oker Harim. And the Gemara there notes that Har Sinai is better. And so it actually is very, very similar to the Gemara here. In that, in both cases, the fundamentals are more important than sort of like the add-ons or what you might be able to do.
The analysis.
And then the analysis, exactly, 100%. So Yishkah for raising that, and I thought that it's interesting that you actually can see that those two Gemaras are very consistent in their outcomes. So where did we get to? Well, we also concluded with a story involving Eliyahu Navi. Eliyahu, Mark and Lori, was a prophet for the Jewish people back, in the first temple period, and he. So this would be about 1000 BC, about maybe a little bit after that, 900 or so, something like that, maybe 900 to 800 BC. So the point is that he was a prophet for the Jewish people, and he is the person who's going to come back and tell us when the Messiah is going to come. But he often would meet with rabbis in the time of the Gemara, and we had one story at the end of the day yesterday, and now we're going to have another story with him today. So it's 11 lines up. One, two, three. Middle of the line. Eliyahu HaVishchiach is the beginning of the line. Is the middle of the line where we're going to pick up. Misniasa is the first word on the line, and we'll pick up from there. So Eliyahu HaVishchiach b'mesiv to Derav.
Rebbe.
One second.
The Rebbe.
I'm sorry, the Rebbe. I just missed the yud. So that Eliyahu was often in the yeshiva of Rebbe. Yom Echad Reish Yarchahav. One day it was the Rosh Chodesh. It was a new month, and Nagale below Asa. So he was looking around for him, and he didn't come. So Amrle. So when he did come, Rebbe asked, "My time on Nagale Lamar. Why were you late today?" So Ad Okimna LaAbraham. So Amrle Ad Okimna LaAbraham. So Eliyahu said, "I had to wake up Abraham. Umashina Yadei Mitzalei, and wash his hands, and then he would pray. Umagnina lay, and then I laid him down so that he could go back to sleep. And I did the same thing with Yitzchak and Yaakov. So now Rebbe asked, why not just rake all three up at the same time, wash all their hands at the same time, and then lay them all back down at the same time? Wouldn't that save you time and you'd be able to get here on time? So Sabre, they were thinking, meaning that the people in the heavens understood takfe barachame, that if they all worked together, they would overwhelm with prayer, with beseeching of Hakadosh Baruch Hu, umaisi leila Mashiach below zemnei, and the Messiah would end up coming before the proper time. So Rebbe asked him, is there anybody who has that ability to pray like that in this world? So Eliyahu said, Ika Rebbe Chia ubanav. Yeah, Rebbe Chia and his sons, they are of that kind of quality. So Gaza Rabbi Tanisa, so Rebbe decreed a fast, and Achtinu the Rebbe Chia ubanav, and so he put Rebbe Chia and his sons as the leaders of the prayer on that fast day. And if we take a look, if we turn to Pei Vav Amud Aleph, second Tosfos on the page, which actually goes here, Okumna Livnei Hateva, Shlashtan, he would appoint all three of them. Kedarish b'midrash, as we learn in the midrash, and this midrash is Tanchuma in Parshas B'Shalach, that the betayin is tzibor. Then on a fast day, Yordan Livnei Teva Shlosha, you should actually appoint three leaders to be in front of the people. Kediksiv v'yedei Moshe kvedim v'Aaron v'chor, because when the Jewish people fought Amalek after leaving Egypt, so Moshe stood on the mountain, and when his hands were raised, the Jewish people were successful, and when they were down, they were unsuccessful. And so Aaron and Hur stood right next to him and helped hold his hands up so that he would be, so that the Jewish people would be successful. And so that concept of having three people davening together can be seen from that story in Sefer Shmos. So as a result,
all three of them, it says Shetei Tefilatam Nishmat, but were all of those three acting as shliach tzibur at simultaneously?
Well, the three, Rabbi Chia and his two sons.
That's the question.
Yes. Well, I mean, I wasn't sure whether you were referring to Moshe, Aaron, and
No. That was an action. Here we're talking about Rav Chia.
Yes. It seems like, again, that's the way Tosfos understands it.
But the Gemara says elsewhere, maybe even Tosfos says Trei Kole Lo Mishtama. You can't dare. You can make a bracha. You shouldn't. Two people shouldn't be saying the bracha at one time.
Correct. So the first is so two answers to your question. One is it's a difference between davening on a fast day and so the way I'm understanding this is for a service like Slichot, where there isn't a Shomea Ka'ona kind of concept. This is not, I don't think that they're saying that it would be for the Amidah, because then you're absolutely right. Then even two voices you can't hear. So that would be confusing to have multiple voices where you need to be able to hear. So I don't think it's talking about Torah reading or the repetition of Shmona Esrei, but in places where it would be where there's no sense of having to listen to the Shliach Tzibor. So then the idea would be to have three Shluchei Tzibor so that they could support one another in their crying out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's how I would understand it. Although, and actually you can see the following, because what's interesting is that we then have the language from Shmona Esrei, so it's addressing your Ishnu, but it doesn't say Amru, it says Amar Mashiv HaRuach. Rabbi Chia alone said the words Mashiv HaRuach, V'nashva Zeka, and the wind began to blow. Omar Morid HaGeshem, he said that the rain should fall, and Ba'asa Mitra, and rain came. Kimata Lamemar Mechayim Ezim, and he was about to then say the words Mechayim Ezim, Ragash Alma, the world shook. Amri Barakia, and they said in heaven, Man Gali Razia Ba'alma, who revealed these secrets in the world. So Amre Eliyahu, and they said it was Eliyahu. Eliyahu was the one who told Rebbe that Rebbe Chia and his sons were of that kind of quality. Asyul Eliyahu, they took Eliyahu, Machayuhu Shitin Polse Denura, and they put on him 60 lashes. It's interesting that it was 60. We've seen that number throughout this Gemara, as opposed to, I think 40 lashes, because that's a traditional number for lashes. So, but the number 60 has come throughout this entire Gemara. So it's interesting to think about what is the meaning of the number 60. I don't have a great answer for that off the top of my head. So Asa, so what did Eliyahu then do? He then came, Idmu lehu beduba denura. He came out like a fiery bear in the shul. And you can imagine, right, if a bear walked into the shul, it would be very difficult to concentrate, right? You'd probably panic and be running around. So Albanayu, and he started going up among Rebbe Chia and his sons, Utradinu, and as a result, that distracted them. So let's take a quick look at the last Rashi on Pei Hey Amud Bet. Kimata Lememar Mechayim Mesim Ragash Alma, that when he came to say Mechayim Mesim, that the world began to shake. So, but Avagav the Iganami Mechayim Mesim Mikamei Mishiva Ruach, right? When we say the second bracha of Shmona Esrei, it begins Atagibor, and it continues Mechayim Mesim Ata Rav Lo Shia, and then Mashiva Ruach Umorida Geshem. So, but Mechayim Mesim is referenced before that. So why didn't the world shake before when he said Mechayim Mesim? So Avagat the Iganami Mechayim Mesim Mikamei Meshiva Ruach, even though there is a reference to Meshiva Ruach, to Mechayim Mesim before you even get to Meshiva Ruach, Omer Rabbeinu Tam explains why there wasn't the shaking at the first reference.
Is Rashi? Is this right? You said Rashi.
No, I said this is Tosos, the last Tosos on Pei Hey.
You said the last Rashi. Okay.
Sorry, if I said Rashi, I meant Tosos. So my apologies. So Avagat the Ikanami Mechayim Mesim Mikamei Meshiva Ruach. Even though we say Mechayim Mesim before the reference to Meshiva Ruach, Omer Rabbeinu Tam Mishum Tchias HaMesim Lo Havi Ela Al Yadei Tal. The whole basis for Mechayim Mesim is based on some kind of dew of water coming down to essentially refresh everybody's bodies, and so as a result, that's why it didn't shake the first time. But once it began to rain, now it has the ability to work. The reference to Mechayim Mesim. But alternatively, you can say the B'meishiv Ruach Umorida Geshem Nashav Zeka Ve'asa Mitra. Because that reference to Mashiv Ruach and Marida Geshem, that is the core element of the tefillah for rain, and so v'hageshem, tefillas haruach v'hageshem. So shebebrachazu, that is in that second bracha of Shmona Esrei, and so as a result, because that's the core element of it, so as soon as you mention it, that's where it's going to happen. About tchias hamesim, but when it comes to tchias hamesim, Ikrahi b'chasimasa, the reference to Mechayim Mesim at the very end of the bracha, Brachata Hashem Mechayim Mesim. So that is the core element in this bracha, and so that's why nothing happened when it was first mentioned. Okay, but we've now told one story about Rebbe, which we got to because of Rebbe Chia, because we're talking about the greatness of Rebbe Chia. So now let's hear another story. So Shmuel Yarchina, who is the Shmuel, it's understood as being the Shmuel of Rav Ushmuel. So he was referred to as Yarchina because he was the one who was able to figure out when the new moon would happen. Asaye de Rebbe Hava, he was the doctor for Rebbe. Cholosh Rebbe Be'ene, Rebbe had some kind of eye sickness. Amrlei, Imli Lach Sama, let me put some medicine in you. Amrlei, Lo Yachelna, I can't take it. I can't have you put the medicine in my eye. And if you've ever had eye drops, you know that that's not an unusual thing. Ishtar Lach Mishtar. All right, let me give you some kind of salve so that you could put on the top of your eye, so it won't necessarily go there. Amrlei, Lo Yachelna, I can't deal with that either. So Hava Mosef like beguvta to samane, tute beisaje. So he put a container of the medicine underneath Rebbe's pillow. And that would cured him. Havel kamatztaer Rebbe lemismechei. And so Rebbe wanted to try and make Shmuel a rabbi. Below Hava mistaya milsa, but he wasn't able to make it happen. So and Rashi notes here, last Rashi on the daf, that the time just didn't work out. Or the Chachamim weren't gathered at the right time. So he didn't have the opportunity, or the rabbis weren't there. On some level, he didn't have the opportunity. So Amrlei, so Shmuel said to him, Lo Mark, don't be worried about it. Ledidi chazigli sifra the Adam Arishon. I had a chance to look in the Sefer of Adam Arishon. Adam Arishon had a very famous book that nobody knows where it is today. And that book listed every person who would ever live. And it said something a little about them. Uksiv Bay, and it was written there. I don't know. I didn't see this book, so I don't know but then maybe Moshe Rabbeinu is considered the first rabbi. So Shmuel Yarchina, when it comes to Shmuel Yarchina, as we turn to pay Vavam and Aleph, Chacham Yiskarei, he'll just be called a Chacham. The Rebbe Lo Yiskarei, and he's not going to be called Rebbe. He's not going to be called a rabbi. The Rebbe Al Yado Tehei. And Rebbe will be cured through him. So as a result, I knew that I was going to be, basically I know that what my fate is, and I am okay with it. Rebbe Nasan Sov Mishnah. What else did it say? If we take a look in Rashi, third line on Pevam and Aleph, Kol Zeh Kasav L'Sham. So that also in that book of Adam Arishon was the following statement that Rebbe and Rebbe Nasan would be the Sof of the Mishnah. They would be the ones who would finish the era of the Mishnah. And what does Sof Mishnah mean? Sof Tanayim, as Rashi says at the beginning of the next Rashi. So back into the Gemara, Rav Ashi Ravina, Sof Hara, and Rav Ashi and Ravina, they would be the end of the Hara period. And you can see, you take a look at Rashi, Sof Hara, again, they'll just do the first couple words, Sof Kol HaAmorayan, they would be the end of the period of the Amorayan. The Simanach and the Siman that Rav Ashi and Ravina would be that end of the time is Ad Avo El Mikdashei Kel Avina La'acheritam. So you have Avina is like Ravina, and Mikdashei is the reference to is a Siman to Rav Ashi. I'm not exactly sure how, but in any event, that is the understanding. And the point is that Acharisam is their end, meaning that they would be the end of the Amoraic period. Okay, so now we've been talking about the greatness of various rabbis. We go to the greatness of somebody else. Amaro Kahana, Ishtoili Rav Kama Bar Barate Dechasa. I happen to hear from Rabbi Chama, the son of the daughter of Rechasa, Rabba Bar Nachmani, Agav Shmada Nachnafshe. Rabba Bar Nachmani died only because, in general, he's known as just Rabba. He died just because he was afraid of being persecuted by the authorities. Well, what's the story about that? So we're going to get another story. So let's take a look. Achalu be kurza be malka. That people were they were achalu be kurza. They were maligning him in the palace. Amru, and they said, Ikachad Gabri B'Yudai, there's this one Jew to come Vatel Tresar Alfe Gabri Yisrael, Yarka Bakaita, Bayarka Besisva, Mekarga Demalka. There's this one Jew who causes 12,000 men in one summer month and in one winter month to avoid the tax of the king. So Shadru Paristaka Demalka Basre. So they sent a royal emissary after him. Oh, and Rashi explains that this is because in the months of Nisan and Tishrei, if we take a look, basically it's right opposite the second to last line in the narrow lines of the Gemara. You can see on the right-hand side of the page, the Mishnah, Had to Kamavatel, Kul Shenikbatzin Alav, Benisan V'Tishrei, Lishmoa Drashos, Shal Pesach V'Shal Chagim. That the point is that during the month of Nisan, he would gather people to hear about the holiday of Pesach, and in Tishrei he would gather people to hear about Sukkot and the other holidays of the month, namely Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And when the king's people would come, messengers would come and try and collect the tax, Maskul Goles, the head tax, shall kol chodesh, the chodesh that was collected every month, einam nimtzam b'veitayim. They wouldn't be able to find them because they would be out learning and they wouldn't be at home. And so as a result, that diminished what the king could take based on his taxes. So we go back into the Gemara, and so they sent after him to try and get him, to try and catch Rabba Bar Nachmani. And they weren't successful. Lo ashkachai, they couldn't find him. Arak, Ba'azal, So he was in Arava Azal Pumbedisa La Akra. He went running from Pumbedisa to Akra, me Akra La Agma, or me Agma La Sichin, me Sichin La Tzrifa, or me Tzrifa La Ena Demayim, or me Ena Demayim La Pumbedisa, Ubadumbedisa Ashkei. So he was running around. It was like, where in the world is Carmen San Diego, or any of a variety of movies where you're trying to chase somebody and find them. So they finally found him in Pumbedisa. How did they find him in Pumbedisa? Because of the following story. Ikla perisktaka demalka lahu ushpiza de Rabba. So he was going, so in the same inn that Rabba was staying, you can make a movie out of this. So the person who was the person that the king sent, he was there as well. Kurivu takad kame. And so they brought in front of him a cup. They brought a table and said, in front of the messenger, ashku tre kasi, and they gave him to drink 2 cups. Now 2 is an important number. 2 is an even number, and we said vidalyua lusaka mikame, and then they took away the table in front of him. So that meant that he would only have 2 cups. Hadar partsufe lachore. His face, his head turned 180 degrees around. Very, very strange. That's understood as sort of like he was taken over by demons. And that is because if you do something in evens, we saw in Masechet Psachim, near the end of the Masechet, that can cause problems because demons like the even numbers. So my navidle.
So Rashi is saying there, Shadim Amamunim al Hazugot, was it Mazikim at the
yes. All right, so we'll take a look at that Rashi. I see that you're there already. So it's a Rashi 5 lines down in the wide lines of the Gemara. Opposite that, Ashke Taran Kise Uduluyot Lataka. So we gave him the 2 cups and they took away the table. The Shadim Hamamonim al Hazugos, the demons that are appointed on pairs, Mezikin as Hashosa, they damage the person who drank it, meaning the messenger. Zugos, who drinks in pairs. Ubnei Habayis Lonis Kamnulkach. But they didn't mean for him to be caught up in that issue. But the demons happened to be there at that moment when he drank the 2 cups, and the demons like interfering with people who do things in pairs. And so as a result, the demons caught him and caused his face to be turned backwards. So Amrulai, so back into the Gemara, and we're back 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 9, 11 lines up, middle of a line. Amrulai, my navidle, what are we going to do about this guy? So Gabra de Malkahu, he's a king messenger. We better fix him. So Amr Lahu, so Rabba Bar Nachmani told them what to do. Kurivu taka l'kamei v'ashkiyu chad kasa. Go get him another cup, v'deluyua l'taka m'kamei l'tasi. And then remove the table from him, so he's not going to have any more, and so he'll have 3 cups. 3 is not an even number, and as a result, everything will be fine. So they did that, and he was cured. So Amar made the Yadana. So although he was cured, he knew that something strange was going on. So he says, I know the Gabra de Kabina Hakahu. I know the guy that I'm looking for has to be here. So he searched for him and he found him. Amar, and he said, Azlina meha, I'm going to leave. Katlo, if they kill me, Lahu Gabra, if they kill that person, namely me, Lo Magalina, I'm not going to reveal your location. But but if they whip me, Magalina, then I may reveal, because I can't necessarily stand up to torture. And that's absolutely what we see in the world today. So in any event, as you look, it seems like either Rabbi Bar Nachmani decided to go voluntarily, or that was a trick. Not completely clear, but Asyua Lakame, they brought Rabbi Nachmani in front of the king. Aylula Adruna, and so they put him into a jail, into a room, and meaning they which was going to be his prison. Utraka lebava ba'anpe, and they bolted the door. Ba rachame, so he asked God for rachamim. Parakashisa, and the wall fell down. Arak va'azal la'agma, so he got up and he went to the swamp. Havayasif agirda de dikula, and he was sitting there on the stump of a palm tree. The kagaris, and he was learning Torah. Come if gave him a sifta de rikia, and so they had this argument. Now, at that it happened to be at that very moment there was an argument in the heavenly yeshiva, in the Beit Midrash. In Baheret Kodemis Lusayar Lavan, if you have the beheres, the stain of a tzarat, the one of the kinds of the stains of the tzarat, and if that stain on the skin preceded the white hair, so then tameh. Then the white hair is an indication of the baheres being a tameh baheres, and therefore the person is tameh as tzarat, tameh tzaras. V'im, with the affliction of tzarat. V'im say ar lavan kodem baheres, but if the white hair came before the baheres, tahor, then the person's tahor. It's not an indication of anything. Stopik, what if there's doubt? So a Kadosh Baruch Hu Omer tahor. The God says that in that situation we'll say that there's tahor. The kulo misivta the rakia amrei tamei, and the rest of the yeshiva says it's tamei. Now, on some level, it's very almost ironic that they're having this debate because, of course, for Hashem, there's no how could there ever be uncertainty? Hashem knows what in fact happened, and yet, okay, we'll see you next time. And so as a result, it's interesting to think about from that perspective that here Hashem is saying that if there was an uncertainty, it would be tahor, whereas everybody else is saying no, you got to be strict. It's tamei. But Amri, man nocha, who's going to help us decide? Because it's 1v1, right? We have everybody, all the angels on one side, and we've got on the other side. So we need somebody who's going to decide this issue. So Amri, man nocha, who's going to decide? Nochach, Rabbi Bar Nachmani. So let's have Rabbi Nachmani come and make the decision. The Amar Rabbi Bar Nachmani, ani yachid b'negaim, ani yachid b'aholos, that I am unique in my knowledge of negaim and aholos. So as a result, he was like a specialist. So Shadr Shlichu Basrei. So they send an agent to get him. Namely, they sent the Malach HaMavis, as we're going to see in a moment.
So how is Rabbi Bar Nachmani? Wait, is this to say he's communicating?
No communication yet. No communication.
But wait a second. How can he's sitting
on
the, and is he hearing this communication that this
no indication that he was hearing it yet. So but the angel couldn't come to him because he would not stop learning Torah. So adahachi nashav zika. So what they did is they had a wind blow, and as a result, it made among the reeds a loud noise. And Savar Gunda de Parashe, and he thought that noise was the horsemen of the king that were trying to come and capture him. And of course, now that he's escaped, they're probably going to kill him and torture him. So Amar Tenach Navshe Dahu Gavra, it would be better for that person to just die below Yumaser Biyada de Malchusa and not to be given to the hands of the government. So Kihava Kanaicha Navshe Amar, and as he was dying, he said Tahor Tahor. So here's where it becomes a little confusing because, of course, what it seems like is he's answering the question that he agrees with HaKadosh Baruch Hu that when it comes to an uncertain situation, whether you're unclear whether the white hair preceded the Baharis or the Baharis preceded the white hair, so then, like Hashem says, it's tahor. But not completely clear. It could just be that was whatever he was covering, but it certainly seems that that's the way people take away from it. But in any event, Yatzas Basko va'amra, so a heavenly voice went out, Ashurecha Rabba Bar Nachmani. Fortunate are you, Rabbi Bar Nachmani, Sheguvcha tahor, your soul is your body is tahor, and your soul departed with the word tahor. So the point is that double tahor could be understood as one for the body, one for the soul. Okay, Nafal.
So this is Rabbi Bar Nachmani. He was the one that he referring to himself. So he died at that moment, right?
Yes, exactly. He died at that moment.
This is similar to the story of David Melech, right? Where they ain't, where he didn't stop 100%. Talking, and he falls, and he hears the wind blow. When the Malach Mavet causes the wind to blow, and he trips down the stairs.
Correct. That's exactly correct. Definitely analogous to the story of David Melech, which of course is that also can be viewed as a Daf Yomi coincidence with us coming up on Shavuos, which is understood as the birthday and day of David Melech's death. All right, Naval Pisca Mirikia de Pumpadisa. A note at that moment fell from the sky to the ground in Pumpadisa. And Rabbi Bar Nachmani Nisbakish B'Yeshiva Shamala. So that Rabbi Bar Nachmani has been requested to the Yeshiva Shamala. So that namely, guess what, guys? He's died. So Navka Abaye, B'Rava, B'Kula Rabbanan, so everybody wanted to go out and attend to him, meaning they assumed that his body would be findable and that they would have to bury it. But they couldn't find any location. They happened upon that swamp. And they saw birds were particularly hovering and shading a particular location. They said, we understand that he was there. He is there, meaning that there's nothing there left. So they began to eulogize him for 3 days and 3 nights. And they thought they were going to stop, but Naval Pisca, another note came from heaven, anybody who thinks that that's enough, anybody who separates at this point, that they will be under a nidui, under a excommunication. And so as a result, Svadu Shiva Yomi. So they eulogized it for a total of 7 days. Naval Pisca, now another note came down. So the third note, go home in peace. Hahu Yoma Denach Nafshe, on the day that he passed away, Dalye, again, there was this big wind. So what happened? Dalye Zappa, the Dare, Lahu Taya, Kirakiv Gamla. There was a powerful wind that picked up a particular Arab merchant as he rode his camel. Mehai Gisa Dinar Papa, Vishadi Bahakisa. He was on one side of the Papa River and he ended up on the other. So this, of course, makes one think of Life of Brian. What?
Like a hurricane.
Well, a hurricane, but yes, but the point is that what's amusing about this is there's nothing special about this merchant, about this Arab, but he experienced the miracle of Rabbi Bar Nachmani because he was the one who got caught up in the wind that was purposely blowing in order to make a lot of noise, in order to cause Rabbi Bar Nachmani to be scared and to say, "Oh, I don't want the king's men to catch me, so I will allow the Malach HaMavis to come and take me instead." So Amar, my high, what is all this? So Amri Lay, they explained to him, Nach Nafshe de Rabbi Bar Nachmani. So Rabbi Bar Nachmani has died. So Amar Lafanav. So the Arab said, Ribono Shalom, Kuli Alma Didachu, all the world is yours. But Rabbi Bar Nachmani Didach, and Rabbi Bar Nachmani is yours. At the Rabbi Barabba Didach, and you are Rabbi, and Rabbi is yours. Amai Kamacharav Leila Alma, why are you trying to destroy the world with all your wind? So Nach Zappa, so the wind quieted down. All right, so that's the story. So Rabbi Shimon ben Chalavta, Baal Basar Hava. So another story, and you may say, well, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China, which is perfect because, of course, that's the phrase, Ma'ayin Shemitah Eitzel Har Sinai. So how does this have to do with anything? So Tosfos gives us the answer in the fourth Tosfos on Pei Vav Amdal. Rabbi Shimon ben Chalavta, Baal Basar Hava. Mishum Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, to have a Baal Basar. Remember, all the way back when we were talking about Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, who was the police officer, he also was a pretty big guy. And Nakadnami Hai Uvda. So we also are going to share this story. Umasha Shehimtin, Ad Khan, and that which we waited until now to tell that story, because each item in the progression has connected one to the next. So now we're going back to the very beginning.
Well,
All right.
that was the story where the two of them were so
Yes,
big
so
that
obese that an
they could
animal, two
hide the
animals,
two oxen. They can hide
correct,
two
could go
oxen
between.
between their bellies.
Exactly, that's exactly right. You have a good memory. So Yom Echad have a chamimale. It was a very hot day, and of course, if you're very heavy, so then you're going to be even hotter. Have a solik b'yosef ashina detura. He went to sit on the top of a mountain. Amr levar abrate. He calls to his daughter, Biti hanifi alai b'manifa. Wave me, fan me with your fan. V'ani etain lech kikara denerd, and I'll give you some nerd. Nerd is some kind of a nice plant with a good perfume. So adahaki nashrazika. But at that point, before the daughter even had a chance, the wind blew because to give him to cool him down. Amar kama kikarim denerd lamari dichi. So so many bunches of nard should go to the master of the wind, namely to Hashem. He acknowledged that the wind was from Hashem, and he appreciated it. Okay, so now we go back. Finally, we're returning a little bit, although not really away from stories, but a little bit back to our topic, which was of our parak, which Hasocher is a poem, which is when you hire workers, that you have to pay them according to the local custom. And we said, Hakol Kamin Medina, everything is like the custom of location. Hakol Well, what does everything come to include? Well, when you're in a particular place, where they would give bread and drink anpaka, and anpaka is a breakfast drink, that if the employer says to them, go first to the workplace, and then I'll give you this stuff. Amrulo, they can say to him, lo kol kaminach. It's not like you said. Meaning, if the custom is that they eat breakfast before going to the work site, you need to give them the breakfast before they go to the work site. Okay, so the Mishnah then said, Ma'aseh b'Rabban Yochanan ben Metzia she'amar livno tzeuskor. Now, what happened in this story? Rabbi Yochanan ben Metzia sent his son to go hire some workers. The son said that he was going to give them food, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Metzia thought that the food that was going to be given to them would be like a king's meal. But one second, Maisa Listor, that completely contradicts the previous statement. This incident undermines what we said before, because we just said Hakolka Minaga Medina, that everything is like the custom. So how could you understand it? So Chasuri Maxara Vahakitani. This is what was really going on. If, however, you specify that you're going to give them food, well, then, as we turn to Peivav Amrabet, Ribalahan, you have to add food to them. Umasanami Rabbi Yochanan ben Masya, Shamar Livno, say Skor Lanu Poalim, Halaku Fasak Lahan Mizonos, Ukishabai, Talaviv, Amarlo, Bini, Afilu Ata Osa Lahan Kasuda, Shlomo, Bishato, Lo Yata Yade Chovasuka Imahem, Shahim Bene Abraham Yitzchak. So we say the story again, right? The son goes and gets the workers and commits to give them food. So again, as a result of the missing statement, it means that you have to add food to them, and you would add food as would be appropriate for them. At least that's the way Rabbi Yochanan ben Masya would understand it. And as a result, you would need to give them even a banquet like King Shlomo is not sufficient, because they are the children of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Well,
where does it say it adds? Where does he say he's adding? The Gemara says adding food to them.
That's the very first words on Pei Vav and Bet, says that if you say you're going to give them food, Riba Lahen, you have to give them extra. That's what that means. And so the question now is, how much extra? And so the point that Rabbi Yochanan ben Masya is saying is, I understand when you promise them extra, you have to give them extra like it's appropriate to them, which could be as much as anything, as more than a banquet of Shlomo, because they're the children of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Okay, and now the Gemara says, one second, Lamemra, if the whole reason that even Shlomo is not sufficient is because of their children of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, that implies the Seudasa, the Abraham Avinu, Adifa Midishlomo, that the banquet for Abraham was bigger than the banquet for Shlomo. But we seem to see in Tanakh the opposite, because V'haksiv, Vayhi Lechem Shlomo Liyom Echad, and how much was food for Shlomo in one day? Shloshim kors solas v'shishim kor kamach, 30 cores of fine flour, 60 cores of meal, asara bakar, 10 bari and 10 fat oxen, the esrim bakar and 20 oxen, re'i out of the that were in the pastures, umeet's own, and 100 sheep, levad ma'ayel utzvi v'yachmur uvarburim avusim, and that doesn't even include the gazelles, the deer, the yachmor, and the avusim hens. So V'amar Gurion ben Astion Mishmei de Rav, and Gurion ben Astion said in the name of Rav, Halalu amilan shal tabachim. This was the meal and the fine flour were just for the cook's dough. The Reb Yitzchak Amar Halalu l'sika kadera, that they were just for one dish. V'amar Rabbi Yitzchak Elav Nashim Hayu l'Shlomo, and Rabbi Yitzchak said that Shlomo had 1,000 wives, and Kol Achaz v'Achaz Azalo b'Beisach Kach, and every one of them would make this kind of banquet in her house. So my time up, why would they all each do it themselves? Because Zu Svura Shema Etzli Suad Hayom, maybe he's going to eat with me. V'Zo Svura Shema Etzli Suad Hayom, and every other one thought the same thing. V'ilu Gabi Abraham Ksiv. So we have these literally, hundreds of animals, it seems like, maybe even thousands, hundreds of thousands of animals, because every one of the 1,000 wives did the same 100 sheep, 10 fat oxen, 20 oxen, etc. So when it comes to Abraham, Abraham, it seems like Abraham just took one tender and good calf. So Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav. So Rav says with respect to this as well, no, actually it was 3 animals. Ben bakar echad, rach shnayim, v'to shlosha. So those were the 3 different animals that we had. Well, 1 second. So hasam tlasa ture l'tlasa gabri. And so how can we understand that this is considered a lot? Because listen, when Abraham made his banquet, he wasn't eating. And his banquet was for 3 people, the 3 angels. Of course, he didn't know they were angels, but they 3 people. And so 3 calves for 3 people, that's 1 animal per person. But when it came to all of that 100,000 animals that were made, that was L'Kol Yisrael Yehuda. All of Israel and all of Yehuda would come and eat from those animals. And how do I know that that's going to be way more than the 100,000 plus animals 130,000 plus animals that we've already counted? Because Yehuda v'Yisrael Rabim Kachol Asher Al Hayam. So they were like the sand by the sea. So as a result, that was way more. It was less than 1 animal per person. Way more people than to have 1 animal per person. And so as a result, really, in fact, Abraham Suda was even bigger. So my barburim avusim, what are these barburim avusim? Barburim is hens.
But each of the wives was preparing.
Correct. So that's how I got to the 100,000 number. Because remember, it was 130 animals, 130 large animals, because you had 100 sheep, 30 oxen, and so that's 130 times 1,000, because there were 1,000 wives. That's 130,000. And then there were the gazelles, deer, and yachmer, and avusim hens. But the bottom line is that however many animals there were, it ended up being fewer than 1 animal per person. So Amar Rav. So now what are barburim avusim? So Amar Rav, we're going to have 4 answers. Answer number 1, she'ovsim osan bal karchan. They're force-fed hens. So that's how they got really fat. Shmuel Amar, no. Shmuel says that's not. They didn't get fat by eating on by being force-fed. Shavuzim be'omdim alehen. No, they fatten themselves. These are special hens that love to eat. Rabbi Yochanan Amar mevian tor mimaraito. No, it was not even b'dolo anis v'tarnagolas ma'ash b'sa b'dolo anisa. So in both the cases of the situation was they would bring ox when they said that they brought the ox from the pasture. It means that they never force the ox to do work to do work. And when we say that we took the hen from the trash heap, from where the chickens would say, Bidalo Anisa. Again, it was never forced to do anything. So as a result, it was a free range, as I define it here. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan answers another statement, provides another statement, an aside. Sure, the best animal, if you want to find the best food, you're going to eat an ox. And the best kind of a bird is tarnagolas, is a hen. Okay, so Amar Amemar, answer number 4. What is this? What is? Oh, I'm sorry, I did not scroll. Okay. What is this avusim? What are these avusim hens? So again, we've had 3 answers so far, and now we have the 4th answer. Zogsa uchmasa batnisa. So it's got a big stomach hen that's black. The mishtaka bene atzre, that's found in the between wine presses, because that's where it's got plenty of food. Delo matzia pasya kanya. It can't even step over a reed, meaning it's so heavy that not only can't it fly, but it can't even like pick up its feet to climb over something. So so now we're going to go through, and the rest of today is going to be spent going through this meal that Abraham made for the angels. So Amar Amemar,
these hens weren't forced either. They were just that's
correct.
where they congregated around the wine.
Exactly. So only the first one was force fed. So okay. So Zagza I'm sorry. Bela Bakar Ratz Abraham, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, then Bakar Achad, Rach Shnayim B'tov Shlosha. We saw that just a moment ago. Be'em Achad. How do I know that it's really 3 the way Rav says and not just 1? Kid Amri Inshi Rakik V'tav. Maybe it just means a tender and good calf. So Im Kain Lichtov Rachtov. It could have just said Rachtov. Why did it say my vit vatov? Why did it say and it was good? Shmami no Ladrasha. It came the vav came to teach us something. Well, aim a tray. Maybe that just tells us that the good and good tells us the second one. How do I know that there were 3? So midit tov ladrasha. Once the word tov is coming to teach us something, rach naming ladrasha. So that the rach is also coming to teach us something. So that gets you to 3. Massive Rabba Bar Ula, the Itema Rav Hoshaya, the Itema Rav Nasan Bar Rabbi Hoshaya. So somebody raised the following verse. Vayitain El Hanar Vayimaher La So. Once again, it says that he gave a single oso to the youth to prepare. So if there were 3 calves, it should have said otam. So kol chad v'chad yave l'nar chad. So each animal was given to 1 youth to prepare. One second, but what about the end? He did the 1 calf which he had prepared. So that seems to be again 1 calf. No, the kama demacha. Each one, when it was ready, that was served. And he brought it before them. The lamali plus. So why do we need 3? 1 would be sufficient. So Amar Rav Chanam bar Bava. Because he wanted to feed them 3 calves' tongues with mustard. So Amar Rebbe, because again, they would need, each one would get their own tongue. That's not enough. 1 tongue would not be enough for everybody because we want to give them a nice amount. So Amar Rebbe Tanachum, Barchelani Lai, La'olam al Yishaneh Adam Minhag. You see from this experience that a person should not deviate from the customs of a particular location. Sharei Moshe alamarom, when Moshe went up to heaven, so below achalechem, he didn't eat any food because malachei hasharis, because the malachim don't eat. Malachei hasharis yardu lamata, when the angels came down below, ba'achlu lechem, they did eat food. Ba'achlu salkadai, do you really think that the angels ate? They're not able to eat. Ela ema niru kamisha achlu shvishasu. It appeared as if they ate. So Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Everything that Abraham did for the angels, the Hashem did the God's self for the children of Israel. And everything that Abraham did through a messenger. So too, Hashem did through an agent. So, for example, Abraham ran to the cat of the Ruach Nasa Me'ez Hashem. So too, a wind swept over the camp, and this is in connection with the Slav, and the Slav came and fed the people the meat that they were hoping to have. And Abraham took the cream and milk. And Hashem also rained down food from heaven, just as liquids can rain, so too Hashem rained down food, the man. Abraham stood over them to be able to serve them. So when it came to Moshe trying to understand HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem stood by him and covered Moshe while Hashem walked by. But Abraham imam l'shalcham, and Abraham walked them out. But Hashem livneihem yomam, and Hashem went before the Jewish people in a pillar of cloud to lead the way. So we see the exact same thing. Each one, Abraham did himself, and so too Hashem did directly. But when it came to getting water, Abraham had some water brought, meaning he didn't do it himself. So v'hikisa batzur v'yatzu mimenu mayim v'shasam. So too, Moshe struck the rock. This is, of course, in the Shmot story where striking the rock was what he was told to do, and the water came forth. Upligi the Rabbi Chama bar Rabbi Chanina, and this argues a little bit on Rabbi Chama, the son of Rabbi Chanina. Dam Rabbi Chama bar Rabbi Chanina, v'chein tana debei Rabbi Yishmael, b'schar shlosha zachu shlosha. That for 3 actions that Abraham did, the Jewish people got 3 rewards. B'schar chema b'chalav zachu laman, for the fact that Abraham got the cream and the milk, so the Jewish people got the man. B'schar v'hu omed aleihem zachu la'amud hanan. That just as Abraham stood over them, watching them to protect them, to serve them, so too the cloud of glory, the pillar of cloud that Hashem provided to protect the Jewish people. B'schar yukach na ma'at mayim, and just as he took some water, so too zachal ve'era shel Miriam. So too he got the well of Miriam. So again, the first and the third are the same teachings, except that it's more about the Rabbi Chama doesn't focus on the directness. He focuses just on the end result, whereas Rabbi Yehuda, in the name of Rav, focuses on the directness of it. But the middle one about the pillar of cloud, that was based on different things, because the first statement of where it stood by to assist, that was referring to Hashem standing by to cover Moshe as Hashem walked by. Okay, so so we'll do one more line. Abraham told the angels, bring some water to wash your feet. So Rabbi and Rabbi Yishmael. So Rabbi and I said, Amrulo, the angels said back to him, you are suspecting us as being Arabs who bow down to the dust on their feet? No. Kvar yatzam mimenu Yishmael. This guy who's saying that already had Yishmael come from him, and so as a result, it's the pointing out the irony of the concern. And we'll stop there because we're going to now go into a further analysis of this whole incident, and we'll take a look at the details of again Abraham's meeting with the angels. So if you're looking forward,
what's the point here? You're saying about Yishmael Yatzam Mimenu?
That Yishmael, who himself is going to be an idol worshiper, and is going to be the source of the Arabs who are going to bow down to the dust of their feet, that is going to, it's ironic that father of that person would be suspicious of us, the angels, of having dust on our feet that we would want to worship. I'm not exactly sure what we're supposed to take away from it, because it's not, certainly the Gemara is not clear on that point. But the point is that, one should be very careful, as the saying goes, the one in glass houses should not throw stones.
But they're asking. Wait a second. Rabbi Shmuel wants to say that these angels were that suspected that Avram was thinking that they were Arabs, and yet Yishmael Yatsam from Avram, right? So,
Correct.
So what is the Hava mean here? What are these? Why are the angels? Should they be concerned that they would be?
Abraham asked them to wash their feet. They understood that the reason to wash their feet, and of course, the Rashi cites this, is that the reason to wash their feet was because Abraham was worried that they worshiped the dust of the earth. And so, as a result, the dust that they would be bringing in would be dust that would be idols, and he didn't want that to happen. And so, that is sort of the under one understanding of what happened. And now we're getting a reply that the angel said back, namely, you're concerned about us worshiping the dust in our feet. You suspect us of being a typical Arab, but it's your son Yishmael who is going to be effectively the source of all of this issue. Meaning, again, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones.
So they're saying to him that Aravim will come from you.
Exactly. The irony is that you are going to be the source of all the Aravim. Now, obviously, there were Aravim at that moment. Otherwise, what was Abraham's Havamina? But of course, Abraham doesn't know that they're angels. But at the same time, and of course, Yishmael at this moment is still in Abraham's house. So it's like there's a time inconsistency in the comment as well. And of course, there's an irony that it's Rabbi Yanai, the son of Rabbi Yishmael, who's making this comment in the first place. We don't usually, even notwithstanding the fact that there were many Rabbi Yishmaels in the time of the Gemara, we don't use the Yishmael as a Jewish name today. So there are a number of ironies in this story. I do not have, other than the general message of not throwing stones in glass houses, I don't have a particularly insightful interpretation to offer.
Rashi concludes there, they seemed to him that they were Arabim.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. And obviously, there were Arabs at the time. There were people who were living in the Arabian Peninsula, etc. So, I mean, there were people there. And so, yeah, that's exactly what they appeared like. So, all right. Again, good. Like I said, the main lesson that I'll take away from this is don't if you if you live in a glass house, don't throw stones. Be careful about the accusations that one makes, especially even if they don't necessarily apply to you. If they apply to your children, it will be taken less seriously. All right. We'll pick up with the Yerei Lav Hashem Be'elonei Mamrei, God willing, on tomorrow. Again, I'm not sure. Keep an eye out on your WhatsApp to see whether whether it's before Mincha or between Mincha and Marv, or after Havdalah for the precise time of tomorrow's learning. Have a wonderful weekend and good Shabbos.
Shabbat shalom.